Hi there guys, welcome to the video, and in this video I'm gonna review this brand new quadcopter. This is the T-Motor Feather120. It's a 3-inch quadcopter and a super light toothpick if you want. So again, I'm gonna review this quadcopter in this video. I bought this quadcopter with my own money. So no disclaimer. I'm gonna tell you what I like about this quadcopter, what I dislike about it, and whether you should consider it or buy it. Right, let's get into it. Here we go.
You serious?
Alrighty guys, the T-Motor Feather120. It's a 3-inch quadcopter, and again I bought it with my own money. And why did I buy it? Well, first of all, I quickly needed a quadcopter to test ELRS. And this is a mostly ready to fly quadcopter. However, you do need to add a receiver, which I obviously did. Also, I like that they went to the extra length of making a blow molded. I think it's not vacuum formed, this canopy. I like that better than 3D printed stuff. This takes more engineering and cost also. So to me this shows that they, well, had the intention to make something a little more special than your average quadcopter. Whether that's true or not, but I do like the effort there. Also, it's probably lighter and stronger than, well, lighter. Lighter than a 3D printed one, and it fits a little better. The screws bite a little bit better in this material. And you actually get a second canopy. This one was installed on it originally. You get a blue one and a transparent one. And while we're at it, the quadcopter did not come with these. These are dull props. New Cyclones 3018s. Yeah, I switched the propellers out just to try, and these work out a little bit better than the Amax Avan propellers. These are 3028, so the pitch is a little higher. And this is a red version of the propeller. The quadcopter came with transparent propellers, one set, but these ones you can see a little bit better. Yeah, these are, I'm not sure what to think of these propellers. I suspect that companies use these propellers on their ready-to-fly quadcopters because they look a little more impressive maybe. They aren't great propellers in my humble opinion, especially not for this quadcopter. It flew reasonably well on these propellers, but again, slightly lower pitch works better. And the motors, these motors are tiny, right? It's a light quadcopter, but especially this quadcopter has tiny little motors. These are 1102s, and so even for a toothpick, these are small motors. And the small motors have trouble managing these Amax propellers because they have quite a lot of drag, relatively, right? But yeah, again, these motors have trouble managing these propellers. And that's better with these propellers. They are a little bit skinnier and the pitch is lower. Again, these propellers make the quadcopter fly better. You'll have to apply a little more throttle, but again, the motors can actually manage these propellers. Okay, so the frame is a one-piece frame, a carbon fiber frame, and it's well engineered in my humble opinion. I've had numerous crashes, really a lot of crashes by now with this quadcopter, and the only thing that went wrong really is me losing one screw. Yeah, that's only, well, it's not really damage of course, but it's the only thing that went wrong with my quadcopter. It's super duper light, right? So crashes won't have an impact at all. And while we are looking at the bottom, you get 2 spare rubber bands for your battery. And the quadcopter does not come with a battery. I used a 450 mAh 1S high voltage battery for this quadcopter, a no brand Lipo basically. So obviously this quadcopter doesn't pull a whole lot of amps, right? So yeah, most Lipos will do reasonably fine. The distinguishing feature about this quadcopter is definitely the small motors. It has a brand new Runcam Nano 3 camera. Yeah, it's a small little camera, so what do you expect? It's fine, but yeah, bigger cameras work better. It's fine. I can't complain about the camera. Also, there will be a link to this quadcopter in the description down below. It's an affiliate link, so if you want to help out the channel, you can use that link. It's to Banggood. And if you don't want to support the channel, then don't use that link. Well, you can use that link to look up the specifications of this quadcopter, of course. And last thing, you get a string tube to color this FPV antenna blue if you prefer. Yeah. At least I think that's what it's for. Also, the quadcopter came in this plastic container, which is nice. It's definitely well protected in shipping. However, you can't fit the quadcopter in that container with the propellers on. So ultimately that container is a little bit useless. It's a shame. It would have been very nice if the quadcopter came in some kind of container which you could protect it in while well, in transport or storage. And T-Motor is a premium brand, right? So I would have liked to have seen that. With that said, let's do some complaining about this quadcopter. After that, I'll tell you what I like about this T-Motor quadcopter. Alrighty guys, complaints about the T-Motor Feather120. First complaint is it doesn't come with a receiver. And is that a complaint? Well, it's something to know, right? One thing to consider. So you'll have to do a little bit of soldering, and if you can't solder, then this quadcopter is not for you. Or maybe you can ask a friend to solder in a receiver. However, everything is tiny in this quadcopter, obviously. So it's well, it's not a beginner soldering job either. Second complaint is well, let me show you the UARTs in this quadcopter as it came out of the box. And what is missing here? The quadcopter did come with a VTX, right? A video transmitter. But as you can see here, the UART isn't set up for the VTX. So smart audio, how to change channels and power output. Honestly, I just couldn't believe my eyes when I saw this. This is again a premium product, right? T-Motor, and it's not expensive, I must add, but still, this shouldn't have happened. A T-Motor, and I bought it with my own money in a regular store, right? So this isn't set up. Is it smart audio or is it IRC tramp? I don't know. There is no documentation. That's the third complaint. With this quadcopter, there is no documentation whatsoever with this quadcopter. Not on paper and not online. Well, at least at the time I'm making this video. Maybe by the time you are watching the video, there is documentation about, for instance, the flight controller or the VTX. So that is definitely a major complaint. No documentation whatsoever. Unbelievable almost. I figured things out, right? I flew the quadcopter, but still, there should have been documentation for this quadcopter, either on paper or at least online. And the fourth complaint is that there was no tune whatsoever in this quadcopter, stock Betaflight. And it actually flew pretty nicely on stock Betaflight, but not optimally. There was quite a bit of room to better this quadcopter with a proper tune, which I have now done. Maybe I'll do a separate short video about the setup, so how to install a receiver in this quadcopter and with a proper tune. Alrighty, if you're still here, then this T-Motor quadcopter might be the quadcopter for you, because those were all the complaints I have about this quadcopter. So, positive things about the T-Motor Feather120, and while I'll tell you what I like about this quadcopter, I'll show you some DVR footage, which again is from that teeny tiny camera, so it's not HD, 4K HD, but okay, so what I like about this quadcopter, I think it is well engineered. It is super duper light but still strong. Again, I've had a lot of crashes with this quadcopter and I can't see it breaking at all. Again, with this weight, it'll never have the inertia to break itself in a crash. Even if you'd drop it out of an airplane, it would survive probably. Well, probably it would survive. So very, very durable, and even the propellers, I haven't been able to scratch up propellers despite numerous crashes. Again, with this weight, you won't have any kind of inertia. Also, the motors are so small, again, they won't be able to spin if you hit a branch, for instance. And on that note, a lot of people say, well, these motors are so small, is this quadcopter maybe very efficient? It is very efficient. I was well able to get like 8 or 9 minutes of flight time out of a 450 mAh 1S battery, which is great. Right, and it wasn't even just cruising, but some acrobatics as well. And if you really go for it, you can turn that flight time down to maybe 5 minutes, but not a whole lot shorter than that, even if you freestyle the quadcopter. So this setup is very efficient. However, there's a downside to everything. With these small motors, it is also a challenge to fly this quadcopter. If you, for instance, were wondering if this is a freestylable quadcopter, here let me show you some split S's and power loops. And so that is definitely possible with this quadcopter. However, it's also a challenge. And is that a complaint? Not to me. That made it more fun to fly this quadcopter, it being challenging. So there are other toothpicks with slightly bigger motors, and those are probably easier to fly. But again, I like the challenge this quadcopter sets. So those other toothpicks with slightly bigger motors will probably be less efficient, shorter flight time. And again, that extra challenge, making it more difficult to pull off power loops or other maneuvers, is a bonus to me. I have other quadcopters that are more powerful, right? I don't need just another capable quadcopter. Again, this is actually a little bit like how I set up my simulator quadcopters. I always set those up to be slightly underpowered, making it more difficult to fly them. Which you learn more from, right? And it's also, again, challenging. So one other thing you might wonder is this a racer? Is this a raceable quadcopter? Well, let me tell you, if your friends also have this quadcopter and you'd be racing against each other, then sure, this is very much a raceable quadcopter in that sense. However, if your friends have a different toothpick, maybe with slightly bigger motors or higher well, that shouldn't matter, but bigger motors, the thing is that only a small change in motor size will have a percentage-wise big impact. So it's never a fair race if you fly other quadcopters with a different configuration. So again, if you'd be racing against others with the same quadcopter, then sure, this quadcopter does fly well. It feels speedy, even though that's mostly because of the angle of the camera, right? The view. It's a wide view, so everything looks fast. Yeah. So it's not a super duper fast quadcopter, but again, if everybody flies the same quadcopter, it doesn't matter. So guys, that was my review of the T-Motor Feather120. What do you think? And if you're still here, you're obviously interested by this quadcopter, and I'd say I'd buy it again. Knowing what I know now, it's a lot of fun to fly. So that's partly because it's a challenge to fly, so that might not be for everyone. If you're the kind of pilot that simply wants perfect quadcopters that are easy to fly, then this probably isn't the one. But if you like the extra efficiency plus a little bit of a challenge for freestyle maneuvers, then this is definitely a recommended quadcopter. And maybe you are a fan of T-Motor, then this is definitely recommended for you. There were some downsides, especially the setup, so the configuration, but that can be solved without cost, and then you have a pretty nice flying quadcopter. And that's it. I hope this video helped you out. Be sure to like and subscribe, etc. Thank you very much for watching. Catch you on the next video. Bye bye.